Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Happy Independence Day for the US. Of course, the 4th of July in 1776, the Declaration of Independence for the US was adopted. It was a historic document that proclaimed equality of rights before it became part of the Constitution. Independence Day is the main national holiday of the US that's celebrated across the country by parades, fireworks, and of course picnics. And in order to celebrate it when it comes to War Thunder, Gaijin are bringing back two vehicles, the F-86 F-35 and also the M26E1. Both are going to be available from the 4th of July to the 7th with Golden Eagles as the general price. As usual, these things are pretty pricey for what they are, and it's kind of hard to justify them unless you're really interested in them. You can also get an Independence Day decal, though, from the 4th to the 7th of July. Basically, just play 3 battles using American vehicles, and you can get yourself a wonderful decal. Let's get into the vehicles that are on offer. The first vehicle that is on offer is the M26E1. Now, this is a rank 4 premium, base rating 6.7 for America, and one of the interesting things about this vehicle is it's basically just an M26, but with a different gun. Whereas the M26 has the M3 cannon, the M26E1 has the T54 one, which you can see is a lot longer and also has different rounds to it. It also has a longer reload, and also the turret or targeting speed on the gun's a little bit lower than the M26. It also is technically slightly heavier, but it's not really going to make too much of a difference for the vehicle. The 90mm that this has access to around the T41, which is pretty good. You know, it pens 224 at 10 meters, 170-76, which is okay. There'll be some heavies you won't be able to go through, but most vehicles it's going to be alright. Then you got the HVAC shot, which does actually pen quite a lot, which is quite nice for the vehicle and should be able to do a lot of stuff with it. The main problem with a vehicle like this is America 6.7 is already insanely stacked. You have the M56, T92, the M50, then also the T34 heavy tank, the Super Pershing, and then the T26E5 as well. So you already have an incredibly good basis of a lineup. Then if you have the T30 and the M6A2E1 as well, you already have some pretty nuts stuff. I would actually say something like a Super Hellcat would be better, because it just gives you a different way of playing compared to what you have over there, or maybe even the T29 pack when it's on offer, so you can play with that 7.0 lineup. But yeah, 6.7, 6.3 is already insanely strong, and also all you're really getting out of this thing is a Pershing, which is slightly higher BR, with a little bit more pen, but a longer reload. So I would say it's not really worth it, especially for the crazy price. The other vehicle that's on offer is the F-86 F-35. This is very similar to the one that we have in the tech tree, the good old F-25. They're basically the same plane. They work exactly the same. There might be very minor differences, but they're not going to make a difference to the performance of the vehicle. So it has 650 cals, which are pretty strong, you know, with the trace around and the APIT. Sometimes it can feel like you're not doing a lot of damage to enemies, but one of the things you have to understand with jets, which I think is important, is even if you don't kill an enemy in one pass, the amount of damage you do to a vehicle generally makes it lose so much performance that turning around and hitting it again is going to be deadly. The Sabres, I feel like, are in a little bit of a dodgy place. Recently I played the Venom, and we'll talk about that vehicle a little bit later on. But the fact is, 9.3 right now is insanely strong, and they've moved down a lot of monsters to 9.3. The F-104s, for example, and then also the F-100s, MiG-19s, and even stuff like the Lightning. And that means that 8.7 can be bullied pretty aggressively by it. And since the Sabre relies on its overall ability, you know, the combination of speed, firepower, and maneuverability, sometimes you just don't have a way of stopping these guys just going around you and just annihilating you, which can be annoying. So that's something to think about. At its BR, you know, the only thing I'd say that's better than it is the MiG-15 bis, and also some of the British aircraft, but that's just a playstyle thing. It's a pretty decent vehicle. Just remember to install your boosters so your wings don't fall off. and also at the same time, it does get access to bombs and also HVARs. It doesn't have custom loadouts yet, but I'm sure it will do. But the bombs basically make it a good threat in ground forces, because that's kind of a guaranteed kill if you hit them on the ground, and then you can also, you know, CAS afterwards. So it's not a bad one in that way. I feel like there's worse options for America at this BR, but I just wish that this thing didn't really face a ton of the 9.3s. If that was the case, the vehicle would feel really nice, but unfortunately right now, 9.3 seems to be more of the meta BR around this tier. So when it comes to these special events and how they work, now that we have like the decal and then the returning premiums, obviously the returning premiums is, you know, kind of an added positive on top of the decal, which we only used to get before. But I've got to be honest, it kind of makes me a little bit sad that these things are so expensive compared to even the prices you could get them for before. And I get the reason why. They have made them expensive, the whole limited time thing, and also at the same time just, you know, making it a little bit harder to get access to. But for example, this F-86 F-35 is 9,270 G. So 10,000 G is $90 Canadian. So this is probably what? Maybe like $70 Canadian or $80 Canadian. So that's the same price as the pack that you would get for the F-86 F-35 back in the day, but you don't get any of the added bonuses. So technically, they brought this vehicle back for a limited time, and it's more expensive than it was previously compared to what you could get before. Now, surely that's wrong, right? Surely that can't be right in people's heads, because the value of this thing is way less than it was before if you just have a look at what it can grind, but also if you take into account stuff like inflation, blah 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 blah, general economics, then of course the price would increase. But then if you compare it to like all of the other stuff that's being sold, those prices haven't increased compared to it, so therefore it shouldn't go up, and all of these wonderful things that bounce around in my head all the time. But the main thing about this is it's just sad. You know, I personally think when it comes to these types of days, when it comes to these days of celebration, instead of selling really expensive vehicles, they could maybe do that, but then on top of that, maybe do some discounts for others, like maybe some of the unsung heroes of the tech trees, maybe ones which aren't played as much. Or maybe at the same time, what they could do is they could do something like some discounts on talismans on certain vehicles, or maybe discounts on modifications, stuff that you see during the standard sales, which would actually make it a little bit more interesting. Because right now, the way that these kind of holidays work, you know, it's obviously nice to see the decals, and it's nice to see them experimenting in different ways, and the fact that we have like 5 going on right now is kind of nuts, but it just leaves kind of a bad taste in the mouth, and I just wish that that wasn't an issue. Anyway, as always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.
I'd just like to thank Millie Draper, Juan the Panda, Nick R. Kupila, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie B. Young, Peter Grayling, Jerry Provolt, Bareen, Alan Hacker, Sem Arslan, Uncle Bean, Derek R., and Lafouche for supporting the channel.